The first playoff domino has fallen in the Atlantic Division. With a win over the Senators tonight, can the Lightning be next?
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Josh Sperber, thanking all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. And the Tampa Bay Lightning do have a potential chance to clinch going up against the Ottawa Senators today for the third time this season. And the Ottawa Senators have been a pretty important team in the Lightning season so far. It was the 2 games against the Senators that jump-started the Lightning's longest win streak of the season back in February, with back-to-back wins against Ottawa at home, the first 2 of the Lightning's longest win streak of the season. But the Lightning will be back in Ottawa this time for the first time since October, where the Lightning lost 5-4, suffering one of their first road losses of the season. And now, after 3 very different games against the Ottawa Senators, the Lightning now face maybe their most important test against Ottawa. The Lightning now have a game in hand compared to the Maple Leafs and Florida Panthers, as the Maple Leafs coming off a 3-2 win against Florida that had them clinch a playoff spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, it's still going to have to be the Lightning beating Toronto in a week. That is going to be an incredibly important showdown. But right now, it is just in a one game at a time kind of approach. The Lightning need this win to keep pace and just keep themselves in the running for first place in this Atlantic Division. And that's just the kind of pressure that the Maple Leafs have been putting on the Lightning with the success that they've had, in these last couple of weeks. And for the Lightning, a lot of their offensive success is due to Nikita Kucherov, who has 14 points over the last 5 games with 4 goals and 10 assists. And there's no one other than Drake Batherson of the Ottawa Senators that has more than 3 points over the last 5 games for Ottawa. Senators coming in also 74 games played this season, 39-29-6 with 84 points, currently in the lead for the top wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference. So they certainly have plenty to play for. The Senators with a game in hand and 5 points ahead of the New York Rangers for that top wildcard spot, with the Montreal Canadiens also fighting for both the 4th spot in the Atlantic Division and a wild card spot right behind them also with 79 points. But, people forget this is still a Lightning team that is going to be looking different against the Senators. Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand were not members of the Tampa Bay Lightning the last time they played Ottawa. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but just the depth that the Lightning have in the forward position now after that Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gourde trade, just a masterclass by Julien Brisebois. And it might not be the best deal of the deadline in terms of, the best players that were on the move or whatever, but I certainly think that the Yanni Gourde, Oliver Bjorkstrand deal has been the most impactful deal of the trade deadline, because it really solidified the Lightning forward depth, and the Bolts' record since getting Gourde and Bjorkstrand has been great, and they have both had a really positive impact on the Lightning. and I think will be a big part of the Lightning's upcoming playoff run, which is close to inevitable at this point, but still some work to be done to officially solidify not just the playoff clinching, but also the playoff seeding that the Lightning will get, because that is still very much up in the air. And of course, another storyline that we're going to be following is the battle for the Art Ross Trophy and maybe the Hart Trophy with Nathan MacKinnon and Nikita Kucherov. Both are above 90 points, and both are still looking to clinch a playoff spot. Avalanche in third in the Central Division with numbers 1 and 2, Winnipeg and Dallas, already having clinched a playoff spot. But the big race, of course, Nathan MacKinnon has played 76 games this season, has 111 points. Nikita Kucherov has played 70 games this season, has 111 points. This is a chance for Kucherov to take a bit of a lead in the Art Ross race, but both Kuch and MacKinnon are playing the next 2 games. Each team goes on Thursday, the Avalanche in Columbus to face the Blue Jackets. Then on Saturday, they face one of the hottest teams in the NHL in the St. Louis Blues, while the Lightning have the Senators on Thursday and the Sabres on Saturday. Both teams on the road, but in action. So we'll be keeping a close eye on the Art Ross race. And the Art Ross race could very well determine the Hart Trophy as well. You got to think Nathan MacKinnon is one of the front runners for that Hart Trophy award. But as I mentioned yesterday, I really don't think there's any other choice aside from Nikita Kucherov than that. I mean, what he has done offensively with the Tampa Bay Lightning, I mean, missing a couple games here and there, but still being far and away the leading scorer for Tampa. I mean, the Lightning would not be here without Nikita Kucherov, plain and simple. I think if you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning team, there are 2 players that just you can't take away from the Lightning right now, and that's Vasilevsky and Nikita Kucherov. Those are the 2 players I think that the Lightning would crumble without. And Kuch has said it 100 times. Vasilevsky's the best goalie in the NHL, and I certainly agree with him. He's likely to go against the Stars, or against the Senators, in tonight's game. Well, Vasilevsky has started all 3 games against Ottawa so far this season. But the Bolts, 22, 32, and 5 in Ottawa over their franchise history, though Andrei Vasilevsky, 12, 7, and 0, with a save percentage just under 900 against the Ottawa Senators. Vasilevsky in goal obviously gives the Lightning a better chance, and I think this is a team that is just firing on all cylinders right now. I mean, you have Nikita Kucherov serving as the maestro of the Lightning offense. Brandon Hagel is having a career year. Braden Point is having one of his best seasons, and Jake Gensel also having one of his best seasons, really taking to the Lightning. That first line for Tampa is incredible, and just having them on the ice is just a whole trio of difference makers for Tampa. And the depth that they've gained with Bjorkstrand and Gord have just made them one of the hot teams coming into the end of the season, and they can really solidify themselves as a contender by just continuing their winning ways right now. The Lightning have won their last 4 games, which is, aside from the Blues' 10-game win streak, the Stars' 6-game win streak, the longest active win streak in the NHL, and the second longest for the Bolts so far this season. The Senators have been a part of some pivotal games already in the Lightning's stretch run of the season around the Four Nations break, and they could be a part of the Lightning playoff story. The Lightning with a chance to take a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference, and they're going to have to beat the Senators to do it. And the Lightning have gotten contributions from just about everyone on their team so far this season. They are the only team in the NHL with 4 30-goal scorers and 6 20-goal scorers. 7 if you count Oliver Bjorkstrand, who had 16 of his 20 goals on the Seattle Kraken so far this season. But another milestone that the Lightning have been quietly looking to reach is multiple 20-point defensemen. Erik Chernak, Emil Lilleberg, all with 18 points or assists so far on the season. Points, it's Nick Perbix and Emil Lilleberg that are looking to join Ryan McDonagh, Darren Radish, and Erik Chernak, and of course the captain Victor Hedman, to make maybe 5, maybe 6 20-point defensemen, which is something that's unprecedented for the Tampa Bay Lightning as well. And in the next segment, we're going to talk about why that could very well happen within these next couple of games. There is nothing like watching basketball live. The energy of the crowd, the sound of the sneakers on the hardwood, maybe even a celebrity sighting. Courts up. If you want to catch a game in person, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. Game Time's new feature, Game Time Picks, filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on the best seats, so you don't have to waste time scrolling through thousands of tickets. I just checked the Game Time app, and there are amazing deals on some huge matchups coming up. Game Time Picks even highlights super deals, giving you the best bang for your buck. And with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee, you can book your tickets with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. The Tampa Bay Lightning's offensive prowess has been making headlines all season long, with guys like Brandon Hagel having a breakout season, Jake Gensel turning into a star in his first year with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and of course Nikita Kucherov putting together another MVP-worthy performance and solidifying his status as one of, if not the best, in the entire NHL. Of course, the offense is usually the story when it comes to the point scoring, with Nikita Kucherov leading the league in power play points and tied for the league in points, while also being in the top 3 in assists and top 15 in goals scored on the season. It is Jake Gensel and Braden Point who share the Lightning lead in goal scores, each with 38. And Nick Paul, Anthony Cirelli also adding to that 20-goal marker. But quietly, the Lightning have also come close to reaching the 20-point marker for defensemen, with Emil Lilleberg having 18 assists and Nick Perbix with 5 goals and 13 assists for 18 points. Erik Chernak, 21 points. Ryan McDonagh, 28 points. Darren Radish, 35 points. Victor Hedman, 60 points. 4 Lightning defenders with 20-plus points after the Lightning became the first team with more than 4 20-point scores. They are now at 6 in terms of 20-point scores exclusively for the Tampa Bay Lightning this season, with Bjorkstrand scoring the majority of his 20 goals for the Kraken. And now Emil Lilleberg is 2 assists away from becoming the 5th Lightning 20-point defenseman. Nick Perbix also 2 points away from reaching that mark as well. And that is something that I certainly think could happen. I think the Lightning would already have 5 20-point defensemen had J.J. Moser not gotten injured. Moser has 13 points right now, and only 2 of those have come since he returned to action in February, after leaving a December tilt early on with an injury to his leg that sidelined him for about 2 months until after the Four Nations break from the beginning of December. And just the way Moser was going, he seemed like he was going to hit that 20-point marker easily. He'd probably be second or third among Lightning defenders in points had he not missed those 2 months, as his offensive acumen was certainly showing, as well as his solid defensive skills, despite the fact that Moser switched from the left to the right side to join Victor Hedman on the Lightning's top line. And honestly, I think I'd be a little bit less surprised about Perbix, but Emil Lilleberg was certainly not a player that I had tabbed for what he has done on offense. I mean, Lilleberg, you knew would bring the physicality on defense, which he certainly has. But his offensive prowess, particularly just kind of minding the fast break from up top, dishing the puck around to one of the Lightning's great offensive talents. I mean, the offensive skills I feel like are overlooked from Emil Lilleberg. He's not a guy that shoots to score a whole lot. You feel like a lot of his shots are what end up turning into his assists. But Lilleberg has proven himself as an adept passer, and Nick Perbix is one of the smartest defensemen on the offensive side of the puck that I've seen. I mean, you look at most of his 5 goals, and they're a matter of Perbix putting himself in just the perfect position on the ice to find the loose puck and put it in an empty sliver of the net. I think if only one of these two defenders in the next 8 games of the regular season will get those 2 more points, I think my money would be on Nick Perbix. But I think the Lightning very easily could have 6 20-goal scorers and 6 20-point defensemen. The Lightning could also have 5 30-goal scorers. If Anthony Cirelli gets 4 more in the next 8 games, I think that I don't know how likely that is. Cirelli is not a scoring first kind of player, but it's certainly a possibility. He has 2 goals and an assist over his last 5 games, with Cirelli grabbing a pair of goals in his 500th career game against Pittsburgh back on March 25th. But Cirelli is also 2 assists away from setting a new career high of 29 after he had 28 and 68 games in 2019 and 2020 season. He's already set a career high in goals with 26, just Cirelli's second career 20-goal season, and he's certainly got the scoring ability. Just Cirelli is one of the more unselfish players, I think, on the Lightning team. So that unselfishness might keep him out of heating up and getting 4 goals in the final 8 games of the season. But that's certainly a possibility. I think, though, what would really be fitting for the way the Tampa Bay Lightning run their offense, with the importance of the Lightning defenders in the fast break, in moving the puck around, in just putting it in the cycle. The defenders have a big role for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they have had one of the top scoring defensive units in the entire NHL for the majority of the season. I think that, I think it's really shown up on the stat sheet, and it's really come together in the last couple of months of the season while the Lightning have been on this run. I don't think that they could have reached this point without some of the extra help from their, Ryan McDonoughs, their Victor Hedmans, and everyone like that on the Lightning defensive side, because the Lightning defenders do a better job than any defensive unit at contributing to Tampa's offense when you compare that among NHL teams. So the goal scoring, I think, is something that, frankly, you expect from this Lightning team. It's definitely an offensive-minded squad, and I'm certainly not surprised that they have 6 players with 20 goals or more on the season for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And again, Oliver Bjorkstrand, I think next year is going to inflate that number even more. I'm excited for what a full season of the Lightning offense will look like with Bjorkstrand and Gord. But no matter who is manning the forward positions for the Tampa Bay Lightning, their defense will be there to have their back, clean up some loose pucks, and dish out a couple of assists. So keep an eye on Emil Lilleberg and Nick Perbix as they race for 20 points to make it 5 and maybe 6 for Lightning, 20-point scoring defenders and 20 goal scoring forwards. Truly impressive offensive season so far for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And this is a Lightning team that came from being on the outside looking in of the playoff race and the division race in the Atlantic. And now they are at the forefront. It was the Maple Leafs that were the first team in the Atlantic Division to clinch a playoff spot. The Lightning might be next, but they also might be able to catch the Maple Leafs at the top spot. The NCAA tournament is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, and it's been that way for a while now, there is always something exciting for me to bet on. And the FanDuel app is simple to use. When I win, I get paid instantly without any waiting around. So visit the FanDuel app and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. And you can also still get on hockey action. You can bet on games like the Lightning and Senators tonight, with the Lightning slightly favored on the road. The over-under set at 5.5. And I know I'd hammer the over if you've seen any other Lightning and Senators games over the course of this season. It is playoff time, crunch time in the regular season, and it is the separation of some of the top teams in the league. The Super 16 on NHL.com has the Toronto Maple Leafs at 7, has the Tampa Bay Lightning at 8. And right now, it is the Maple Leafs leading the way with a massive win against the Florida Panthers. First of 2 times in the next week, by the way, that those two teams will face each other, as on Tuesday, April 8th, the Panthers and Maple Leafs will face off right before the Maple Leafs come to Tampa to face the Lightning. Now, that game, by the way things are looking right now, that game looks like it very well could and will decide the Atlantic Division. So it's really all about who wins that one. And I honestly think, even with the Maple Leafs ahead right now, even with the Maple Leafs playing like one of the hottest teams in the league, the Lightning are every bit on their level. The Lightning have had to scratch and claw to get to the point that, frankly, the Maple Leafs have been sitting at pretty much all season. It is now a 3-team dogfight, absolutely, for the top spot in the Atlantic Division. But you look at pretty much every other month of the year until mid to late March, it was the Maple Leafs and the Panthers and everyone else in the Atlantic Division. Now, the Lightning have absolutely joined that conversation, with the Senators 8 points behind Florida for third, 9 points behind the Lightning for second, 12 points behind the Maple Leaf for first. The Senators have 8 games left. The Maple Leafs and Panthers each with 7 games to play in this NHL season. And I think the biggest advantage for the Lightning is the simple fact that they play the Maple Leafs at home again to start with, where the Lightning have been virtually unbeatable and one of the best home teams in the NHL. But the Maple Leafs have already beaten the Tampa Bay Lightning at Amalie Arena. Flashback to the last game of November, where the Lightning put up 18 shots in the final period compared to Toronto's 7. A flurry of 3 goals in the middle of the period, including a power play goal by Cam Atkinson with about 2.5 minutes left, but an empty netter from almost the entire length of the ice by William Nylander. ended up sealing the deal for the Maple Leafs over Tampa Bay. And that game, I think, left a bitter taste in the Lightning's mouth. I mean, that was a game that if they showed the effort they did in the last half of the third period for the other 50 minutes, then we could be having a very different conversation, not just about the result of that game, but you swap those 2 points. If the Lightning get that win over the Maple Leafs, they're in first place right now. And now it's going to come down to an all or nothing pretty much. If the Lightning lose that game on April 9th, they can pretty much kiss first place goodbye with the Maple Leafs now in pole position. And their Wednesday night victory over the Florida Panthers giving Toronto a little bit of breathing room in the divisional duel. But obviously, they're not a team that's going to take their foot off of the gas. Certainly looking for a curse-breaking season. And the Tampa Bay Lightning are obviously one of the teams that are looking to stand in their way. The Maple Leafs famously haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1967, the longest drought among original 6 teams in the National Hockey League. And the last Stanley Cup win for the Maple Leafs came the last time both the Bruins and the Red Wings missed the NHL playoffs. So something to keep in mind there if you were a Leafs fan. But if you're a Lightning fan, I mean, they're in the best position they've been in on all season. The Lightning just have to keep winning, plain and simple. They've got a game in hand right now, which hopefully will put them 1 point behind the Maple Leafs. And the Lightning have the second best goal differential in the NHL. And at this point in the season, defense is still going to reign supreme. That's especially the case in the playoffs. But as I believe it was Brandon Hagel who said it in a post-game press conference, a great offense can be your best defense sometimes. And that is the way the Lightning have played this season. And that strategy has certainly been executed in an incredibly effective way in the second half of the season for Tampa Bay, especially since the beginning of February, where the Lightning went on a 7-game win streak and have stayed hot since then. They have been putting pressure on the Panthers, who are now 1 point behind, with the Lightning having a game in hand on those Florida Panthers. And the Maple Leafs 3 points ahead of Tampa so far. And this is not a position that, frankly, I expected the Lightning to be in at this point in the season. I expected them to be where they were before that win streak started, which was fighting for a wild card spot, but still in a comfortable position and in the lead there. Now the Lightning have made up their games in hand for the most part. At that point, they had 2 or 3 games in hand against about the rest of the Atlantic Division. So it was kind of a weird spot. Now those are made up, and the Lightning are where they have proved they belonged over the course of this entire season, and that is towards the top of the Atlantic Division. Whether or not they will be the top team is still to be determined. Again, that April 9th game is going to be all important, but let's not forget the Lightning still have some much-needed and difficult potential wins ahead of that. The Buffalo Sabres are a team that the Lightning could eliminate from playoff contention on Saturday, but the Sabres are still, a big run away from making the postseason this year. It seems unlikely, but they're still somewhat in this race. It's close enough where they've got a punching chance to get to 79, 77 points. Right now, the second wild card spot is a toss-up. The Senators pretty comfortably in that 7th seed, with the Rangers at 79, the Canadiens at 79, the Red Wings at 75, the Blue Jackets at 77, the Islanders at 74, Sabres at 70, Penguins at 71. I mean, there's even still a chance for the Sabres, the Penguins, some of those teams on the bottom rungs of this Eastern Conference ladder. But that's just going to make it all the more competitive for Tampa. They certainly know what's at stake. They know that they have to win. And you can tell that locker room is squarely in playoff mode right now. I think the recent loss that Tampa took, that road trip, was another wake-up call. The loss against the Golden Knights seemed like a winnable game. They had the offense going against Utah, but the defense kept letting in goals at tough times, and those really flipped a switch at just two straight losses on the road after a win against a playoff team in Dallas. Really flipped a switch for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they're in playoff mode right now. And I certainly think that they can catch the Toronto Maple Leafs, but they got to keep winning. Frankly, the Lightning have to virtually win out if they want to win first place in the Atlantic and take home the division win and a higher seed in the playoffs. I certainly think it's possible. I think the Lightning will finish second in the Atlantic, though. Predicting the Lightning to pretty much win out is certainly a tall task, but a lot can happen. And really, this next week of hockey, right up until the game against the Leafs on April 9th, is going to be very telling when it comes to postseason and the Stanley Cup playoffs, the runs that these teams will take. Next couple of weeks will be very telling about who the hot team in the Atlantic Division is. And that's where we're going to leave it for tonight. Tomorrow we'll have a recap of Lightning and Leafs and a whole lot more. And until then, I'm Josh Sperber, thanking all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. Now, for your second listen, make sure to check out the Locked On NHL podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And wherever you found this podcast today, thank you again for tuning in. But please give us a like, a follow, and a subscribe. We really do appreciate your guys' support. So thank you again for listening once again. Go Bolts, and have a great Thursday.